for being present here for this talk. And first of all, I would like to thank RGPV as well as the Gyan Ganga Institute for inviting me to give this talk. So the theme of this workshop is blockchain-based transactions. And I'm going to be specifically talking about the blockchain-based transactions in the field of energy. So, um, so, um, so essentially, I mean, what I will do in this, basically two talks have been aligned for me. So in this two talks, what I would do is maybe in the first talk, I will give you a brief introduction about the blockchain based. I'm pretty sure yesterday, Dr. Sauraditi Paul from my institute had also given you the same, but I will just talk a bit more from the power system perspective and microgrid perspective. And later on, what I would do is I will give you some of the used cases. So there will be a case study from the Brooklyn energy transactions. And there will be a case study from our India, from Uttar Pradesh. And then there will be another case study which I will show you from Malaysia. So case studies is what essentially they are doing, what are the sorts of pilot projects they are doing, what is the way forward, because this is still an upcoming technology. Okay. So people are still looking at from the pilot project point of view and then gain some knowledge out of it so that it can be helpful in making some policies later on. Okay, so one of the main reason why people have been talking about blockchain specifically in the energy sector, because if you look from, I mean, if you just forget about blockchain for the time being, if you just look at the energy sector and energy consumption of any country, this is a old figure, but still the trend is pretty much the same for the years after 2011 also. The reason why I included this graph was to show the side-by-side comparison of the total energy consumption and the GDP of USA. And this trend is pretty much there. In fact, this curve, you can say the increase in the curve is actually much more for the Asian countries, especially India, China, and all. So the thing that you should get from this picture is that if you are just monitoring the total energy consumption of any country, and if it is growing in nature, this sorts of gives you an indication also that the GDP of the country is growing. Okay, and you might have been observing this that whenever the quarterly results for this energy consumption comes into light, whenever the quarterly results comes out, generally you would see that most of the media catches the attention of this figure, because if you see that the total energy consumption has declined, it clearly shows that the GDP of the country is also not doing very good. So you might see that in the last couple of years, if the energy consumption has slightly decreased in India, so immediately the media was onto it. It shows that, see, this is a clear indication that the GDP. However, that is not the case. I mean, there now I think the energy consumption after the COVID situation also it will pick it up very quickly. So this is basically why the relationship people try to bring between energy consumption and GDP, and that is the reason also that why the total energy consumption is very relevant, and it's a very important area of consideration for the countries. Okay, so if you just look at our traditional generation, transmission, distribution, and load flow, you might see that this is actually quite unidirectional in nature. So you will see that there is a centralized generation. The generation could be in the form of a coal, fossil fuels, natural gas, or it could be in the form of hydro also. But then it is centralized in location. From there, the generation, which is from the synchronized generators and all, it is stepped up. Then you have transmission, and then after that transmission, with the help of distribution transformers, the power level is, the voltages are. Somebody speaking. So, yeah, okay. I request everyone to keep it on mute, and I will give you time to time the chance to talk so you can have an interaction. So essentially, later on at the distribution end, you have this step down of the voltage, and then eventually the electricity is fed to the either to the industrial load or to the households. But the thing that I want to point out with this slide is that it has been quite a unidirectional power. Okay, and here is a problem. Actually, if you look at the traditional versus smart grid nowadays, smart grid in this slide, actually it's pretty much like the essence of a distributed energy resources. It's like there is a very common proverb which says that don't put all your eggs in one basket, and that is essentially what you have in our traditional grids. You have most of the generation which is at one place, and then it is being distributed later on by using the transmission and distribution network. Hello, is there any question? Okay. Yes. I think there are few people who microphone they are able to unmute themselves. Is there a possibility that the host can only give me the right to speak for the time being and then mute everyone, and then later on for the discussion part you can unmute everybody else? I think in the WebEx you have that.
Yes sir, मैं एक बार try कर रहा हूँ sir. Please आपकी end पे मैं दे रहा हूँ facility sir.
Yeah, we'll just also see if there is a possibility.
Yes sir.
I don't think I have that option with me. Anyways, I will let you handle that. So that's now what is happening nowadays with the traditional versus the smart grid. In the smart grid, or basically you can say more or less like with the more and more penetration of solar, wind, and rest of the other DERs also, you will see that the distribution is not just in one basket. It is actually distributed in different baskets. Okay, it has its own advantage. We will talk about that later on also. But one of the biggest reason why this poses a big challenge for the traditional system is that you generally see that in the last, not just last year, but this year also, our India faced two major cyclones. Okay, so one was from the Mumbai side, another one was from the east coast, and just happened. Am I still audible? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah. No, suddenly my slides went off, so that's why I thought I would.
Okay. No, the voice is clear.
Okay, so you would see that you have the cyclones, and it's not just one natural calamity that may happen. You oftenly see that there are floods in the country. Then you have natural disasters like earthquakes, and these are the natural reasons which can disturb or which can hamper your centralized generation. The rest of them could be controls. So you can see that some of the areas here are marked in red, which basically says that there are some control maloperations which are going on. or some of the transmission or distribution feeders are overloaded, as a result of which the unstable system may result. So these are some of the reasons which may lead to blackouts. Okay, and that is a very important uh, thing of concern, which is your reliability and robustness of your electrical power systems. Okay, um, at any point of time or at any cost, the people want uninterrupted power supply. It is not just because this is for the ease of comfort, of course, that is there, but also nowadays with more and more reliance uh, over the electricity and power supply, you have specific equipments which do not even which should not even go for a small voltage flicker or even a fraction of second. I'm basically talking about some of the major industrial systems and also the medical facilities. Okay, so unfortunately, you might have heard over the last 1.5 years that many worse incidents happened in several parts of India because the electricity supply was not there. Okay, so I was just listening to a couple of such news. There was an example from one of our states in India that few people lost their lives because they were on the ventilator and the power supply just went off. Okay, this could be the so power cut may seem to be a very simple problem, but it could result in life and death issues in some cases. So reliability of the power is very important, at least to the critical loads. Okay. So one has to understand the gravity of the situation. That small power cuts to a few households is okay, but critical loads should not face such problems. Okay. For example, somebody might say, okay, so critical loads might be industry, maybe hospitals, but the critical loads can also be parts like some the grocery shops and all. Okay. For example, if the grocery shops they face a major power cut, you might see that most of the food items may not be in a good condition when you purchase them. Okay, because the refrigeration may not be proper, the temperature control may not be proper, and if the electricity is not there, then you might see people may not be able to do the groceries, and that's again major issue. Okay, so critical loads, uninterrupted power supply is a big thing, and centralized generation in that is somewhat a challenge. Okay, because that may result due to the natural calamities or whatever your unstable control systems may result in hampering the centralized generation. Okay, so one of the things you might have people have been observing. Is there a question? Hello?
No, sir. By default, ma'am's my microphone was on.
Okay. Yeah. Fine.
Prashant sir, sorry for interruption, sir. प्रशांत सर
Yeah, I am here only.
हाँ सर मैंने आपको co-host बना दिया है सर प्लीज
Okay, but let me just check if I can. Yeah, sure. So but what I would request you is that keep everybody on mute. If I just keep on unmuting everybody, that may take some time. So I would request you to keep everybody on mute, and then I will give a chance in the end of the session for about half an hour for a discussion. Okay?
Definitely, sir. Definitely.
So what you might observe in the last couple of years is that the solar panel prices have actually gone down significantly. And this is one research study that has been conducted, and it is actually going down quite a lot since 2012 or something. Okay, and this is just the price per watt panel per watt peak for the solar PV. But I just want to mention that significant. I mean, this includes the entire package. I mean, it just includes the solar modules, also the wires, also the inverters, and also price per watt of solar PV. You can see has declined significantly over the last couple of years. There are still a lot of research going on in other avenues also. For example, like thin film solar cells. Although they have not been able to gain that much of efficiency uh, uh, at the lab scale also, but still I would say that in the thin film and the tandem solar cells in these areas, a lot of research has been going on. In fact, in IIT Bhilai also we have some research going on in this area. So you might see eventually a further decrease in these prices later on. So this actually, the reason why I put this slide is that you might observe that since the prices are significantly declining for solar PV, it gives a lot of motivation for the people to have either the large solar farms or even in the small level of rooftop solar panels for electricity production. Okay, and as a result of which, what is now happening is that the consumer has now actually become a prosumer. Okay, so you might have heard this term from other speakers also. Let me just give you another perspective of this, that consumer is traditionally a person who is receiving a unidirectional power flow from your electricity utility. Okay, so you get the power from the utility, you consume it, and you pay bill for that. Okay. However, nowadays you might see that the second picture here shows a house with a solar rooftop. It also shows a wind turbine, although that is actually quite rare to have wind turbines in the in the households. But at least solar rooftop is something which people are installing quite frequently nowadays with the declining prices. So what the motivation is that whenever the solar is producing power, you just take the power and consume it locally. And if there is any surplus power available to you, you can even feed it back to the grid. Okay. And whenever you are able to feed it back to the grid, you receive something which is called as the net metering credits. So this is what you see. So a very common phenomenon, which is not just there in the foreign countries, but also in India nowadays. There are a lot of schemes by the government. Like there is a Saurya Mitra Pariyojana was there, in which a lot of villages received the solar panels installations on their rooftops. And what you essentially get after that, as I said, you get the net metering credits. Okay, so you can see here a person. This is from, of course, I guess this is from USA. So you can see that there is a person who was previously holding a bill of around $168. After the installation of the solar, their bill has actually reduced to $74. Okay, so approximately 50% less, 57% less bills. Okay. Now, what people can also do is, rather than just having solar rooftops, as I said, they can have solar farms also. And nowadays, very frequently, you might be hearing that some place in Gujarat or some place in Rajasthan or some place in Madhya Pradesh or UP, you might see that the solar farms with quite a huge capacity in megawatts and gigawatts are being inaugurated almost every year. Just talking. There is somebody called Jay whose mic is. Yeah, thank you. So as I said that renewable energy generation is there. So what you can see that eventually when people are able to produce power from this renewable energy generation, and let's stick for the time being with the solar PV only. Um, then you might see that with the big farms you may be able to produce even megawatts of power. Okay, and what you can do that later on with that is you can have something which is called as REC, which is renewable energy certificates, which you can generate. And this is pretty much like a demand supply kind of a thing that whenever you're receiving electricity, this is actually nothing but a flow of electrons, but that electrons are being produced by a fossil fuel based generation plant or from a clean solar PV. That's a matter of concern for majority of the countries nowadays. And that is reason why in most of the countries business plan, you might see that there are a lot of mandates by the governments that out of, let's say, 100% of electricity consumption, let's say 30% should certainly come from the renewable only. Okay, now having said that, with these kind of policies being taken into action, it is very important that it is very important that you should be having such infrastructure to generate 30% of that electricity, okay, from the renewable. Now you might see that there might be certain things regarding this. For example, you might be having geographical advantage as well as disadvantage. For example, if you just look from the Indian perspective, you will see that the our coastal states, for example, Maharashtra, Gujarat, they have a lot of wind supply, okay, and they are able to produce a lot of power through the renewable, whether it is from the solar or wind. Whereas if you look at something which is called, for example, eastern part of the country, they have sun for a very limited time. Okay, so as a result of which, you might see that they may not be able to generate that much of electricity. So again, there is a demand supply problem. And then based on that, what you can do is you can have this renewable energy production, and then for a certain amount of megawatts of power in the market, you can sell that power, and as against that selling of the power, you can have this renewable energy certificates which you can gain. And then depending on the demand and supply, you will see that the prices for the ICs can just keep on fluctuating. Okay, so this is a new thing which is coming up. But again, there are a lot of parties involved in this kind of transaction, so there is a big scope of blockchain. I will talk about blockchain specifically after a few slides, that where it can come into picture. But I just want to put the things in the perspective for the time being. So you can see that there are a lot of incentives nowadays to install solar PV. Not just solar PV, you might see in the other renewables, for example, wind also. You might see that initially the cost to establish a wind farm might be high, but then later on the amount of the um, power which you can get from over the years, there's something which is called as the payback period. So that after that payback period, you might see that it starts giving you revenues. Okay. So this is what exactly I was talking about. That you might see that there are countries with the renewable energy policies, and I'm talking about early 2014. And 144 countries actually have defined some renewable energy targets. So 2005, there were few of them. For example, you are in this yellow region, and yellow region, you can see that the number of policies which were framed were generally 3 to 5 policies. But now you can see many of the nations in just 2014 only. Now we are in 2021, but many countries have aggressively put the policies for the renewable energy. Okay, and again, these policies, as I said, they are generally of this form that you should have this much amount of consumption from the fossil fuels based traditional sources, and then this much should be from the renewable. Now let me also talk about energy market very briefly. I will not go into deep into this, but this is how exactly our energy market looks like, the spot market I'm talking about. So you have the quantities in the x-axis, which is in the megawatt, and then you have the prices in the and then you have price on the y-axis, and you might see that this is a dotted curve, which is just the supply curve. So when I say supply curve, that is actually from the different suppliers. So the suppliers can be in the form of fossil fuels, natural gas, coal-based. They could be from the solar. They could be from the wind also. So ideally, you can see that these steps are actually showing the different suppliers. So there is one supplier who is able to supply about um, some megawatts of power at around 7,000 per megawatt hour. Okay, so this is essentially the energy that they are able to supply for the given price. Then there is someone which is at slightly more higher price, and then you can go even higher. Okay, so as you will see that the per megawatt hour your demand actually starts increasing, you might have to switch from one producer to another producer. Okay, so cumulatively you might have to you might have to turn on the generators, and that's why generally when you hear people talking about that in the peak durations some higher costly generation may have to be fired, some costly coal powered generation might have to be fired. This is specifically the reason that I'm talking about, because there are different stages in this price versus quantity. So whenever the quantity starts increasing, you might have to fire up a generating station which is having a higher price requirement compared to the ones which having a lower requirement. So essentially what happens is that you have this kind of a curve for different supplies, and then you have a demand curve also. So demand basically the distribution companies based on their requirement, they also provide prices to purchase. So you might see that this much on the left hand side here in the dark black, they have provided a higher bid, and below this particular point they have provided a lower bid. So wherever this supply and demand curve meets, actually that decides the price for the energy market, spot market. So that's how it works. But I want to specifically convey one point here, that this one on the left hand side here, the providers, the service providers, the energy provider um, to you, it's a mix of both renewable as well as your fossil fuels based generation. Okay? So this is how a classical energy market spot pricing looks like. So I've talked about few things. For example, first I've talked about the demerits of having a centralized generation. What are the merits? We can talk about that in maybe Q&A and discussion session. But after that, I talked about that. So first of all, I talked about demerits of the centralized generation. Then I talked about the declining prices of the solar. Then I talked about that since it is declining prices of the solar, you have a lot of incentives nowadays for people to install rooftop and becoming prosumers rather than consumers. You can get net credits, net metering credits for having the solar rooftops. And as a result of this, you might see that more and more we are going towards the distributed kind of a generation. So there is the power might not be just coming from the centralized coal-based power plant, but it might be coming from some other solar parks, some local consumer. They might be also producing power from time to time, and then they have their distribution. They have their yeah, we have a decentralized generation. Okay. Um, so this is the thing, and then I just show you a glimpse of the energy market, that generally what happens, that majority of the suppliers who are able to give a supply below a certain price, and the demand which is above a certain price, you do some sort of a matching between that. With that, you are able to get the energy price. Okay, but the question now is that let's say you have people who have some solar rooftops on their buildings, or let's say on the residential complexes, and then there could be some people who are their immediate neighbors who may require some power. Okay, so this is actually a case study from the President Street Microgrid Sandbox, and this is in the suburban area of Brooklyn, New York. And you can see that shows actually two areas where there are some solar. So it's from a locality only. So you can see that some of the houses, they have solar renewable rooftops, and just on the other side of the road there could be potential consumers who can actually buy the power from them. And if you look from, if you just put on the hat of a power system operator, you might see that actually selling the price or even transmitting the power from just one household to another household is actually quite economic, because you might see that that there would be very negligible amount of losses if the solar power we are able to transmit from one neighbor to another neighbor, isn't it? So so this actually looks very promising thing, and this actually caught a lot of attention among people, that rather than depending on the centralized utility system, because many states, I mean, you will see that they have their own state generation corporation, they have transmission distribution corporation. So you might see that it's kind of a monopolized system. Do we have to go with that only? Okay. What if my neighbor is able to produce a power? Can I not buy the power from him or her? That's a question. So the answer to that question is actually not that simple, because the moment you have this kind of a problem, there would be a whole lot of questions in front of you. For example, if I am able to receive power from my neighbor, how my neighbor should be able to decide that in which price he can buy the power from me, or how I can decide that at which price I should sell the power to them? That's a very, very relevant question. Okay, so so this is one thing. Even if a supplier is there, for example, if you have some solar rooftops, and right now you're generating power, let's say you are in the mid of the day, you are able to generate the power. Let's say you are able to generate the power, and you have limited consumption in your household, and you have some excess power. At that particular moment, you will say that, okay, I have excess power, I can supply it to you. And your neighbor decides somehow, let's say you come to a contractual thing that, okay, yes, if you have excess power, I will buy it from you. And then the moment you start sharing your power with them, at that very moment you see that some of the guests have arrived at your house, and then they want to access one of your other rooms in which the lights are there, some other loads are also there, and then you start consuming more power, and then you don't have any surplus power. Okay. So what should you do in that case? Your contract will no more hold good, okay, or agreement. Okay, so so if you even mutually you are able to decide, the thing is, how can we get to sign an agreement? There have to be certain terms and conditions. Who will decide those terms and conditions? And even if we decide those terms and conditions, what is the insurance of having a transparency or execute a contract? Okay, because it's very, very important that if you are able to sign a contract, there has to be a complete transparency. Okay. Also, there has to be a possibility that whenever you are signing a contract with a person, you are able to get to know history of if that person has in past signed contracts with other people to sell the solar power, what is the review or what is the feedback of those people who have bought the power from this particular person? Has there been a good rating that they have been able to get a good supply of the power? Okay. And also the quality of the power. Okay. Because solar, if you look at that, it's quite fluctuating in nature. And you might see a lot of power electronics based equipment which are able to do something which is called as power quality improvement. But even in that case, you might see that the power electronics based equipment, they are able to generate harmonics. So is the power that I'm receiving from the supplier satisfying the minimum requirement of the THD? And if not, what if I buy a power from our neighbor and let's say it is not having a very good power quality and it may damage my equipments? How to deal with this kind of a situation? Some very practical problems. Another thing which is very relevant is how can I transmit the power? Should I have a separate lines which are going from my house to this particular household? Can you imagine the situation? How many wires you will have all around us in this kind of a scenario? It will be a big chaos. Okay, you might see a lot of cable wires going at this point of time only in our India. Okay, from a transformer, you might see a lot of wires going from in different directions. Okay, just imagine the situation when people have this kind of a independent solar rooftop solar panels and they want to sell the power, and then everybody is trying to just draw one more wire from your supplier to other possible consumers. Then you will have a very chaotic situation in that case. So that's a very this is again a very significant problem. Another thing is that how can I meter the sold power? Okay, suppose you have excess power, you have been able to keep a track of it, and let's say I've decided to sell certain amount of power to my neighbor. I am claiming that I have sold 5 units of. He is claiming that I have just received 3.5 units of power. Okay, so there has to be a very transparent way of metering that part. How much power you have sold, how much power a consumer has received, and if possible, there is no actually power theft between, because there is certainly a possibility. Okay. And a very practical problem which you face every now and then, that suppose you have even drawn an agreement and then you see that your neighbor has agreed to pay you certain price, but the next day he finds out that actually the prices have dropped, or some other neighbor is actually have offered to give them a power at a cheaper price. Then how will you as a producer of the power would be able to maintain your infrastructure? For example, you have decided that okay, I have, let's say, certain units of power requirement for my house. You have done calculation, and then you have decided that okay, let me have some kind of an installation where I'm able to, at least on a monthly basis, able to generate that much extra amount of units of energy, and let me sell it to other people. Okay, let's say you have come with this kind of a business model. Is it sustainable in the market? Because some other person, you might see that they may be also able to build that kind of a system, or maybe even bigger system than you, and then you will be complete. If they are able to offer it at a cheaper prices than you, then you are completely out of the market. Okay, and these are some of the things which just came to my mind, but there could be many more things. I can see some questions popping up in the chat window. I will take them later on, and we will have a discussion over that. But these are quite relevant things which comes to everyone's mind when you are selling a quantity. Okay, and here the quantity. I mean, Here the thing which you're selling to other person is actually energy. Okay, so you're trading the energy. And this kind of trading the energy from one peer to another peer is something which is called as peer-to-peer trading. Okay, so this is actually where the blockchain can come into picture. So I'm not going into the detailed definition of blockchain. I think you might have heard yesterday Saurabh Paul from him about this in detail. This is a way of keeping the transparent ledgering between the different parties who have come to a mutual agreement. Okay. And the idea is to have blockchain and microgrid shaking hands with each other, so that whatever the problems which I have just talked right now, there are multiple parties which are coming into picture now, and then everybody is settling at a common point, and they're able to execute an agreement in a real-time basis, and blockchain is able to preside over entire that agreement. And there is transparency at every level. Okay. So for example, when I said that, am I able to, when I want to sell the power to my neighbor, do I have to draw a wire at every, from my output terminal to my neighbor every time? The answer is certainly no. This should not be done, because that will be a lot of chaos. So what you can do, you can use the existing distribution system. Okay. But the problem is that if you're using the existing distribution system, who created that distribution system? Well, your house might be receiving power right now from your local distribution company. So they provided the power to your distribution, the tower. Okay. And then from there, you have got another cable from which you are receiving the power. I'm just talking about a simple house. Okay, let's say a single story or a duplex house, commonly you find in India. If it is an apartment complex, the same thing happens, but then it is coming to maybe a one tower building. The entire tower is receiving a power from the distribution panel, and then internally you might see that the distribution might be done by the apartment company, and then you have distribution over that. So you can just feed in power into that distribution network, and then whoever wants to receive the power, they can just tap it from there. And then the metering can be done in a way that you're able to track the incoming power and the outgoing power. Okay, at the same point of time, you're also able to track that, am I generating excess power or not? If I'm generating, I just give the excess power to the grid, and then to a centralized platform, and then that centralized platform can take over it and then decide who should be able to receive the power, and then whatever the power you have put it on the common platform, an online trading algorithm will be generated by which you are able to, whenever the power is sold to a particular customer, you are able to receive the money from them. Everything is done on a real time. I will talk about that in more detail later on. But the idea is that a transparent model has to be there. And that's why the blockchain plays a very, very major role in all this. Okay, so it's about 11:17. So any question in the time being? Because now what I will do is I will show you an real time this Brooklyn microgrid case study. And if you have a lot of questions, I think some of the questions will be answered in this coming slides. But anything else apart from the blockchain which you want to ask right now? Anything which you have not understood in the previous slide? Any questions? Okay, so bear with me for another 15-20 minutes. I will just finish this case study, and then maybe I will also ask some questions which will clarify a few things in your mind. Okay, and then you can also ask me some questions. Okay, and then we can have a constructive discussion based on this. So this is actually a case study from the Brooklyn. As I said, Brooklyn is a suburban area in the New York in USA. And the idea is the same thing, that there are some consumers who are receiving power either from the distribution side, okay, either they are receiving it from the distribution side, or they can receive the power from some other neighbor. Okay, so neighbor, I mean the consumer, you can see that the inflow of the electricity is unidirectional. It is from the DSO only. Okay, so DSO is able to distribution side, the physical exchange is actually taking place from there. Okay, and then if you look at the prosumer side, the inflow and the outflow electricity, when I'm talking about the physical exchange, physical exchange of the electricity, that means transmission, the flow of electrons on the physical exchange, this is always going from prosumer to the DSO only. Okay, so no other parties. So no other party is involved in between this inflow and outflow of electricity. But if you look at the other part, which is the informational and the financial transaction, all that thing takes place using this Brooklyn microgrid blockchain-based platform. Okay, so DSO actually receives the physical transaction information from this platform, and then the prosumer also, the data, whatever data it is, the transaction data is kept in the distribution ledger in this platform only. Okay, so all the information and financial transaction is actually happening through this Brooklyn, through this blockchain-based platform. The rest of the other flow of the electricity is going through the physical medium, which is through DSO only. Okay, so I think this part is clear. Now there might be several other things that what exactly is this transaction data which is kept in the distribution ledger. So I will come to that in the subsequent slides. But this this entire concept was developed by LO3 Energy, and the idea was to have a peer-to-peer retailing of the electricity. And this actually is a form of an energy exchange platform for the prosumers. So those who have the excess energy, they can just, their information in the form of a transaction data can be kept in the distribution ledger. And then from there, you can see the exchange of electricity either from the DSO side or to the consumer side. And this was done in 2016. You can see a lot of videos are there available on the online platforms. You can check on Vimeo or you can check on YouTube. And there are some very good white papers also available based on this Brooklyn microgrid case study. So, okay, let me go to the next slide. So how actually this thing takes place in real time? Okay, so you will see that as a customer or as a prosumer, the idea is that you will have few things installed at your house. First thing is you will have a smart meter installed. Okay, so once you have a smart meter installed, the next thing that you would have to do is to you have to install an application. Okay. Applications are available in the Android format or in the iOS format also. And these kind of applications, you would see how the dashboard will look like. So this is actually a dashboard of from a consumer side. Okay, so not from a prosumer side. So from a consumer side, you can see that you can decide that from where you want to buy your electricity. Okay, you want to buy your electricity from the solar. So as I said here, a participant can choose which source of energy he or she wants to buy. Whether they want to buy completely solar, wind, a mix of solar, wind, as well as fossil fuels. They can also look into their history, okay, that what kind of energy pattern they have been, consumption pattern they have, and then based on that, they can decide from where they want to buy. Okay, and they can set a limit also. For example, if they have solar, wind, and other requirements, they can do a daily maximum amount of cost they would be agreed to pay. For example, they have set a price of, let's say, preferred daily maximum cost can be changed using this kind of a toggle. So right now it has been set to around $9. Okay. So you can have this kind of a dashboard, and once you set this information, then as a consumer you are actually in a way you are a participant in this bidding environment. Okay, so in this bidding environment you are a participant where you have provided that for the given amount of kilowatt hour of energy you are actually agreeing to pay this much amount of money. Okay, now this kilowatt hour of energy can be coming from the solar, wind, okay, or you can completely shut off this solar, wind, that you don't want to buy power from them, you just want to buy power from the DSO, or you guys you just decide that no, I've decided to buy power just from my neighbor, um, or from the clean energy sources, which is solar and wind. I'm not going to buy any amount of power from the fossil fuels based or natural gas based system. So that's where you may see that you as a consumer you have that option. Okay, and this is what is very important, because essentially you as a consumer, anyone as a consumer should have the democratic right that where he or she should buy the power. People have now started talking about democratization of the power market, which is very important thing, which was never talked about. You can buy food from some local restaurants, you have a lot of choices available, but when it comes down to power, you don't have any choice, and that is not good. Okay, it's your right to have democratic right to have the power from whichever source you want. Okay, so these are some other pictures, and courtesy of these pictures is from the Brooklyn Microgrid, this website only. So what these people actually, this LO3 Energy, they have done, they have of course created a blockchain based platform where you the same kind of information which is taken from the consumer side, you can take the same kind of information from the producer side or the prosumer side also, that the smart meter will be installed at their location, they will keep on tracking the amount of the electricity which is consumed by the person, and if they have excess energy, the excess energy can be fed back into the grid, and whatever amount of price they have decided to feed into, that goes into a blockchain based platform where an online bidding process actually takes place, and then the power is sold to a subsequent consumer. Okay, so not just that, what they also do, not just that, what they also do is they can actually look into the various possible locations where you can actually place this kind of um, this kind of possible prosumers. Okay, so if you have a school building which is having a locality where you are having a good rooftop area, they will actually come to you to be a participant in this community solar projects, and then based on that you can get some amount of energy credits. Okay, so this is a very good example of a community project also. So this is actually how your power consumption actually looks like. So you will have your entire dashboard, and very interesting part is there where you will see that actually you have household with a negative amount of kilowatts. What is this negative kilowatts? It is called as the negawatts. The name is not very good, but whatever it is, they have termed it as negawatts. What actually negawatts means, just give me a second. So what actually this negawatts mean is that, for example, you have certain amount of lights in your household which is consuming, let's say, half a kilowatt. Okay, and then if you're running it for about 2 hours, you will consume 1 unit of energy. The idea is that how much would you be able to bid, okay, that you are that if you get paid, you will turn off that light. I hope you are able to get the idea of what this means. So आपके घर पे कुछ लाइट्स हैं, जली हुई हैं, ठीक है, उनका कंट्रोल जो है वो आपके ब्लॉकचेन बेस्ड प्लेटफॉर्म के थ्रू और मीटर्ड सोलर जो आपका फाइनल स्मार्ट मीटर लगा हुआ है, आपने उसकी इंफॉर्मेशन फेड करके रखी हुई है. बट द आइडिया इज दैट लेट्स से इन द पीक आवर्स you have decided that I may not need those lights. Okay, so you might be having 4 rooms. Your mainly 2 rooms are occupied. Rest of the other 2 rooms are not occupied, but some lights are on there, and you have decided that okay, I can afford to have these lights to be turned off if required. But if you are turning off those lights automatically by the centralized system, you should pay me this much amount of price. Okay, so that's what exactly they're talking about, that this particular line, that let us know at which price you would allow us to shut off the system to generate the megawatts. Okay, so you can actually also have a system like this. And it's a very strong kind of a system where we are able to not only save the electricity, but it gives a motivation for the people to save the electricity. And price or money cannot be, nothing can beat that motivation. So that is the reason why they have kept this kind of option in this regard. So as I said, I mean, they have this blockchain based platform. This is basically called as Exergy. So this BMG is powered by Exergy, and this is a blockchain enabled platform which allows for local energy transactions through an online marketplace. And you can see that the online marketplace, the different stakeholders, they are the local residential consumers, they can be local business consumers. For them, the price, for them, the electricity flow is unidirectional. Okay. But if you look at the residential consumers or local business, residential prosumers and local business prosumers, the difference is that they have the special meters which are connected here, and they actually track the bidirectional power flow. Okay, and then there could be a community solar. So community solar, regional energy, they have unidirectional power flow because they do not consume energy, they only supply energy. So and then the energy companies also, they do not require smart meter because they are always supplying energy. So there is a combination of this unidirectional and bidirectional power flow with distributed energy systems. Okay, and some of them, as I said, they will be connected by a smart meter. So the smart meter, tag meter, smart meter that they are talking about is actually a concept which they have developed. So the reason why essentially you want to have this kind of a community microgrid, so what is the reason behind that? The reason behind them is that you have electrical reliability. So the very first few slides we talked about, where you can have a natural calamity, like you can have earthquake, you can have floods, okay, you can have cyclones, as a result of which you might see that many transmission lines have been just uprooted. खंबे गिर जाते हैं, जो पेड़ हैं वो गिर पड़ते हैं लाइंस के ऊपर. There could be significant reasons because of which you might not receive the power. These things actually, these ones. So you might see that. Are you able to hear me? I've just pressed this mute unmute button few times and then this has gone to a still. Can somebody just tell me if they are able to hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Fine. So there are, so as I said, I mean, the critical load should always be supplied with power. So that electrical reliability you actually get with this kind of microgrids. Okay, so this is microgrid itself will provide you electrical reliability. And also the second point will be a good option to have a microgrid because you have a strong grid. Why you have a strong grid? Because you have more and more lines which are connected. You have a very dense distribution system, and as a result of which you will see that the options of failures are very less. Okay, so if some if some generation side gets disturbed due to whatever reason, the other critical loads may able to get supply from some other distributed generation. So that actually enhances the robustness and reliability of the grid. The next two things, the third option that I'm talking about is actually from the blockchain perspective, that if you are having a microgrid and you are able to exchange or trade the energy between either to your neighbors or to your distribution side, that you can get economic development from this option. Okay, and somebody might say that why the distribution companies would even allow this kind of a thing. Then the reason is that your policies might be of that nature. Okay, so you might be having the policies that you have to have this much amount of power which is coming from the renewable end. Now that may not be a possibility for the distribution side to always have more and more renewable energy parks to be developed by systems. So that's why you have this renewable energy certificate kind of a thing, that you can get the power from the from either from the local households, or you can mitigate that percentage of renewable power from the solar parks or wind farms, and then you are able to have a overall economic development, because not just the utility companies get benefited by that, but also you get you as a prosumer also get monetary benefits from this kind of a scenario, and you are contributing to have a clean power supply and a strong grid. Okay? And it's a much more efficient and green energy supply. Okay, so with this, actually, we are almost to 11:36. I will invite question Q&A discussion for the next 20-25 minutes or so. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. I will stop sharing this presentation, and if you have any questions, you can either write me in the chat, or you can unmute yourself one by one and then ask. I will request the moderator if they can have this Q&A session now. So let me just go through chats.
If you may have any query with the sir, you can have any questionnaire with the sir, so that you can get the more knowledge. You may write in the on the chat box also. Kirti madam, you may write on the chat box also.
Yeah. So I think you now have the option to unmute yourself, but I would request you
Yes.
that you unmute yourself one by one and ask your question.
Kirti madam, you may unmute now.
Yes, sir. I'm Kirti Gupta from Mumbai, Vidyalankar College. I would like to know whether a person, if someone wants to consume energy from the neighborhood, so will the person have to send a request, or will it be done automatically if the energy consumption of my house is exceeding my limit and which is not sufficient? So will an automatic request will be gone to the seller, or I have to send a request and then only I will get the power?
So essentially what will happen is that you as a prosumer don't have to essentially go to a customer, or the customer doesn't have to come to you. Sorry. So you as a customer, you don't have to go to a certain prosumer that I want to buy a power from you. So your information regarding that you want to buy this much amount of power from your neighbor, this a piece of information will go into this will go. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just muted myself by accident. Yeah. So this information actually goes into this online platform, and from that platform, actually this information of the demand and supply gets executed, and then you will get the power from your neighbor. So as a supplier, you don't have to do anything specifically of going on hunting for different consumers, and as a consumer also, you don't have to keep on going and hunting for different producers. You just put your request on the online portal, and from there this goes into this blockchain based platform, and then a automatical agreement gets generated from there that you have requested to buy the power from this much money, and then the producer is able to supply your power with this much money, and the best price available for both the parties would be decided, and then you will receive the power. Actually, in the next session, after the break, I will talk about some of the use case studies from Uttar Pradesh also. So in that thing, I actually have a picture which will clarify this thing, that how this actually is done. But I hope I'm able to answer your question for the time being.
Good morning, sir. This is Durga Mishra here. I have a query.
Yes.
Sir, in this existing system, like we are getting energy from UPPCL, I am from UP. So can we sell the energy in this existing grid also?
I'm not able to understand your question. So what do you mean by the
I'm saying, yes, sir. Suppose I have a solar plant.
Okay.
And I want to, like, it's a kind of bi-directional flow if I want to sell electricity. So right now the existing grid can or we have to modify it, then only this
Certainly
bi-directional
some
flow.
modifications are required. The
Okay.
modifications are required not just at the physical
The
level.
infrastructure, right? Infrastructure will have to be created. Okay.
Yes. So some infrastructure will have to be upgraded. Not only this, some policies have to be made. Okay,
Yeah. It will take some time.
You cannot just have a
Because sir, electric vehicles and all the things are increasing, and we are using electricity, so the need is there.
Yes. So it is very important. There has to be some policy, and that is the very basic reason why you will see in the next session. I will show you the case study from Uttar Pradesh, that they have identified certain number of consumers. They have identified certain number of prosumers, and this is a pilot project which they are carrying out right now. And then whether it is the power generation company in the UP or the distribution company in the UP, they have to give their feedback after having this pilot project, that what they have learned, what are the new things which they have observed from this, what are the things where they still require some improvement, and after that they will be able to do some policy changes with that. So then after all this, once this pilot project is over, then the feedbacks will be taken into action, and then some policy framework will have to be done, and then it can be rolled out in the entire state, or the same policy can be adopted by other states with some changes.
Sir, this is Shashikala here. Sir, you have given some examples related to electricity how this application of this
Yes.
blockchain in electricity. Can you give some example of how this blockchain and grid can be used in online business situations in the current pandemic?
In the current pandemic. Okay, so essentially, you might see that. This is kind of a system which can be utilized whether it is whether we are going through the pandemic or even after the pandemic. That's not a problem. The only thing is that in the given pandemic situation, if let's say there is a shopping complex in your apartment building, okay, and let's say the apartment building is able to due to this lockdowns and all, they have not been able to get enough revenue, okay, because the shops are closed. They are open for a very limited duration, and then they have to pay their electricity prices for sure. So the one option that they have is that they can buy the electricity from the local grid, and they pay the price for the units they have consumed. Or what, as a neighborhood, what you can do is you can decide that okay, we will sell the price at a lower price to this particular neighborhood in this pandemic situation, and from there you can as a shopkeeper you can buy the power from this apartment building rooftop panels only. Okay, so that way you can utilize this kind of a system.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sir, I would like to ask one more question. A doubt has come.
Yes.
As this system is based on customer and supplier transactions, and the supplier will gain profit from it. So the taxes will have to be paid by the supplier as well as the customer. So is this feature also going to be embedded into this blockchain technology?
That's a very good question, but essentially this is a feature which can be put into the system. For example, whatever the transactions are going on in the online platform itself, you can decide that whatever the income is there for a particular supplier, you can deduct some taxes right at that spot, and then later on the supplier can actually get the return back. For example, it depends from state to state, it depends from country to country, because in some countries or some states within a country, you might say that if they are, in order to encourage this kind of a system, some states may allow the tax exemptions on this kind of peer-to-peer energy trading. So in that case, you can claim the money back. But this might as well be put into the system itself. So the platform itself, which is doing the financial transaction, they can cut the taxes at the source, and then later on the way banks do it for your fixed deposit. So whatever the interest you have earned, they can look at the interest and they can deduct the taxes from that interest, and then later on you can claim it back from the TDS as you do. So the same thing can be applied here also.
Even I think it should be encouraged by the governments because as this is a very good platform where people can exchange energies, and I think government should also encourage this type of platforms, and for that I think taxes should be exempted. I think this is what I think, or the taxes should be minimum.
Certainly, I completely resonate with your idea. So that's a very important need of the nation right now. But as I said, I'm not a policymaker. Certainly, as a citizen of this country, I can see the benefit of tax exemptions in order to at least motivate this kind of things in the country. But eventually, it all depends on the policymakers, what kind of policies they have. Yeah. Any other question? So let me just pull up the chat. So I think some of the questions I've already answered, but let me still go through them. So one question that can we adopt such solution in Indian context due to large volume of customers? Certainly we can. Actually, some of the pilot projects are going on in India. I will show one use case to you in the next session. There are also some states which have rolled out their blockchain-based policies. For example, Tamil Nadu is one of them. So definitely, this is a very upcoming area with a lot of buzz and a lot of excitement. But certainly, as somebody other has also mentioned, that agreement and policies are required between the two. Certainly, it is required, but we need some education, information, and knowledge before framing these things. And that is the reason why these pilot projects are going on in the nation right now. Because you first want to know at a lower scale that what could be the potential problems which may occur in this kind of a system. Okay. And then if these kind of problems are there, how we can alleviate those problems. So that is the reason why these pilot projects are going on. Any other question?
Participants, any more queries? Any other participant want to have any more discussion?
So there are, so if there are no more queries, what we can do is we can start the next session at, I think the next session start at 12:15 if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, the it is scheduled at 12:15.
Okay, so we can start at 12:15. I will give the session for about 45 minutes or so. Where I will be talking. Just give me a second. I will come back to you. So what we'll do is I will talk for about 45-50 minutes, and in that section I will show you 2 use cases. You can still ask me some questions after that, but then it will be my turn. I will be asking some questions. Okay. Now the thing is that the idea is to ask the questions is not to test your knowledge. Okay. Of course, that is one benefit we will get. But the important thing is that when I ask those questions, there might be some doubts in your mind which will get clear. Okay.
Exactly.
So we will do that activity after my second session, and that will be well within the time period which has been allotted to me. So we will not go over. I am not going to eat your lunch time. Okay.
No, this is not the matter.
Yeah. Okay. Somebody was saying something. Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, I was asking one question, sir. Yes, sir. Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, you can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, I'm just asking, how we can collaborate in terms of some kind of projects related to the blockchain and the smart grid, and the things we can do together related to some kind of thing. These things are now very much observed as I've seen at the industry levels as well as the institutional level. So, how we can connect you and how we can collaborate.
So we still have about 5 minutes before 12 o'clock. So let me just talk about that. So there are various ways by which you can do that. First of all, if you are just talking